What's up, everybody? Welcome into the 1796 Sports Podcast, where me and Bryce will be recapping Tennessee's decent win over Mississippi State in the homecoming game. Um, 33-14 final score. Not too far off from mine and Bryce's predictions in the last episode. So, Bryce, overall thoughts on the game from Saturday night.
Well, the end result was pretty much exactly what we thought it was going to be. How we got there was a little unique, but we were both right about, Mississippi State having one player on offense that makes a difference, and it's Kevin Coleman Jr. He had a great game. Now, Davon Booth did have a good game too, but it's those two players and nobody else. I mean, I feel bad for Michael Van Buren because I don't know if there is a much worse position that a true freshman quarterback could be in. And he didn't play great, but I think he could be pretty good. But yeah, other than that, it was kind of strange. Our defense was uncharacteristically left open some pretty big holes at times. That was just a little strange. And then the offense started off good for once.
Yeah.
Scoring 20 points in the first half, 7 points in the first quarter. But again, this inconsistencies plagued us. Samson fumbled again. And then there's some Nico stuff we'll get into, but go ahead with yours.
Yeah, to your point about Michael Van Buren, he's obviously talented. He was making plays scrambling. Booth had 125 yards. They had 170 some odd yards as a team. And that's 2 weeks in a row now. Tennessee's given up some rushing yards. I think Kentucky was around 160. So that'll be something to monitor going forward. But like you said, overall, the offense looks like they're coming into form if they would just stop shooting themselves in the foot. But again, it's getting better every game. We finally hit some big plays. Squirrel White exists again. Big touchdown on that fourth down conversion on our first drive. And then Dante Thornton just making a play. I saw a lot of people say that ball that Nico threw to him was underthrown, but he's 6'5". I'd rather him do that than throw it 5 yards ahead of him, like he's been doing when he hasn't been successful down the field passing. So I was pretty happy with the game overall, but obviously, I guess we'll go ahead and hop into it. The biggest storyline coming out of this is what is the status and health of Nico next Saturday in Athens?
Yeah, that's pretty much the only thing that matters coming out of this game because everybody predicted a win. So, there's not really probably too much to break down about it other than the fact that we could have a major problem on our hands. Now, Heupel did say he expects Nico to play, and it was kind of precautionary. I don't really believe him, though, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I'm curious, what did you think? It was kind of weird how the whole thing was handled because, you were at the game, and nobody at the game even had an inkling he was hurt.
Yeah, I looked over to my brother as soon as we were about to run our first play of the second half, and I was like, why the hell is Gaston Moore in the game? Because like you said, nobody had any idea that was about to happen. And, if you go look at the replay on that third down incompletion right before the field goal at the very end of the half, he does get hit and falls on the turf. He hits his head on the turf. So I imagine that's why we didn't know anything, because he didn't have to go out for another play. But it's to the point about Heupel. I think he's being told what the trainers have told him. Obviously with the concussion, you're not going to know much until a few days later. These are things you have to monitor very closely. And like I said in the last episode, Heupel does lie. but I really don't think that he would lie about something this consequential to the team's success.
I do, and here's why. If you know that Nico is, something not a concussion, I don't know, could be a neck thing, could be a collarbone thing. If you know that and you know he's not going to play most likely, you're not going to come out and say that immediately because then Georgia knows they don't have to game plan for Nico. I might be being too much of a conspiracy theorist, but and I'm not saying, I don't have any reason to believe Heupel's lying other than strategy. It just wouldn't surprise me. I think, if you know Nico's not going to play, you're not going to come out and say that right away. You want Georgia to have some kind of hesitancy in their game plan at practice this week. You don't want them to know what to expect necessarily. So,
well, I would believe that if we didn't have, I would buy into that conspiracy theory if we didn't have injury reports now that come out on Wednesday.
Yeah, but those things, let me rant for a second. Those things piss me off because it's the whole injury situation in college football is fucked up, and they shouldn't be allowed to do it the way they do it. In the NFL, somebody gets hurt, and 3 hours later what the injury is, how long they're going to be out. There's no advantage to it. There's just, it is what it is. Here's the facts. This is what's going to happen. In college, they game the system. Yes, they have to release an availability report on Wednesday, but all they have to do is say questionable or out or doubtful. Like, they don't have to get specifics. And coaches do what Lane Kiffin does, which there's no penalty for doing it, so I don't blame him for doing it. But Lane Kiffin puts 35 players on the availability report every week.
Yeah.
So you never know who to prepare for. And it's smart because why would you not? He puts his whole team on the injury report. So the opponent has no clue who they're going to play against. Like, why would you not do that? They need to crack down on that bullshit. I mean, am I partially mad for betting reasons? Yes. But it's just for all around the fan experience. Like, I don't know. I just don't think it's fair that some player can have a pretty serious injury and the coach can just choose to list them as doubtful, even though they know they're not going to play.
Yeah, I agree that it's nonsense, and it doesn't help that 2/3 of college football coaches are door-to-door vacuum cleaner salesmen like Butch Jones. Like, it doesn't. They always want the slightest advantage anywhere they can get it. So, I think you've convinced me. I mean, I don't. It just, the one thing that keeps me from believing that still though is it's a concussion. Like, this has been a thing for football the last 15, 20 years now. Like, if he were to string along something like that, he would get raked over the coals. And I don't think that's something Tennessee wants to deal with. And I think he's smart enough to know that.
Yeah, maybe so. And I mean, obviously, for multiple reasons, I hope he's not lying. Like, hopefully Nico's good to go. I am curious. I mean, we'll get into, this isn't the preview episode by any means, but does that significantly impact your opinion on how the Georgia game is going to go? Like, if Gaston plays, do you give us 0 chance?
I mean, I give us a less chance, of course. I wouldn't say 0, just because of our defense and Georgia's. I told you last night while we were talking about the games yesterday. I think Georgia has lost their aura, at least this year. They're still obviously talented, but like you said, this isn't the preview episode. But I don't think with our defense you can write off anything with that game, no matter who plays quarterback. But obviously, Nico playing gives us the best chance for sure.
Yeah. Overall, though, before the injury, what did you think about Nico's performance this week?
I think he was doing well. I mean, when you throw for 175 yards and a half, you're on pace for 350
on eight completions. By the way, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, well, like I said, I want to hear your opinion on this. Do you think he underthrew the Thornton ball?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
But dude, like, would you rather him? When the dude's 6'5", like, I'd rather him do that. When especially when it was 1-on-1, like it was with no safety help.
Yeah, for sure. And it didn't end up mattering, so it's kind of, I'm not gonna like harp on it or anything.
Yeah, I mean the and he had a few misfires like any quarterback does, but overall, yes, I thought he was playing pretty well, and I think I also want to hear your opinion on this because it was driving me nuts. We talked about on Thursday night in our preview episode how bad Mississippi State's run defense is, which
Mm-hmm.
it is for sure. But in the first half, when we were spamming inside zone against 7-man boxes, you know, most teams can figure out a way to stop an inside zone if you're running 7 men in the box. We just kept on doing it.
Yeah.
I, I just didn't get it, especially when we were having success in the downfield passing game.
Yeah, man, I don't know. It goes back to a lot of the stuff we've complained about this year, and you're 8-1, so do you really want to complain that much? But still, the play calling is just weird at times. It's just strange. It's like last year we thought the play calling was kind of handcuffed and weird because he knows Joe Milton's not very good.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the same thing is the case this year, but we don't know why. There's not like an obvious reason this year. Like, I mean, you can't say like Nico was hurt or anything. You can't say he doesn't trust Nico. I wouldn't think it's that he doesn't trust Nico. So I don't know. It's weird. I like the repetitive inside zone halfback dive and inside zone halfback dive. Like it's strange. You would think, especially like what I said in our preview of this game, our athletes are so much better than theirs. Like, do some halfback tosses. Get outside the tackle box.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
Especially, you don't have to be good, like you said. You don't have to be good to win the numbers game. Like, even if you have 7 scrubs, I mean, 7 scrubs can stop one guy.
yeah. I mean, there was multiple times, especially on the drive where we ended up kicking the field goal at the very end of the half, or the drive before that where we got the first field goal in the first half. Um, they would run the inside zone and he would bounce outside and there would be like 2 or 3 guys waiting on him. And Sampson's so good that he would normally get 2 or 3 yards, but I just think there was more to be done, and maybe they're still keeping it vanilla, knowing what's coming next week. I don't know, but you just played your 9th game, so I really don't buy into the secret Georgia playbook theory either. Like, I think our offense is our offense at this point.
And just that argument, it just seems like cope to me.
It is.
I'm not saying you're doing that, but people who do that are coping. Like, the regular season's almost over. I'm sorry, I'm not buying into the argument that there's some secret playbook that we're just not showing anybody yet. Like, I mean, seriously, come on. That could have cost. The reason I don't believe that is because it could have cost us multiple losses.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
this game would be pointless and your special playbook wouldn't matter. That's why I don't buy into that shit at all. Like, oh, we're just saving it for the big game. We don't want to put too much on film. Motherfucker, the season's almost over.
I 100% agree with you, and I didn't even believe it. Talking about when people were saying that, talking about saving it for the Florida and Alabama games back to back. I mean, it's just a theory that I never buy. So, um, talking about some standout players in the game, for me, and I was very happy to see it considering his struggles in the last 2 games. The player of the game was Max Gilbert. I
Oh,
mean,
for sure.
4 for 4, 12, important points when you're talking about a 19-point game, and a career long field goal.
Yeah, for sure. That was really good to see, especially like we talked about with kickers. They're kind of nutcases. Like the slightest little morale shift can ruin their season. So it was cool to see him not get. Obviously, he's fine, and the fact that so many the fans were cheering incredibly loud every time he made a field goal.
Mm-hmm.
So that was good to see. I'm glad because, like I said, we're gonna need him. Like, you're not playing Mississippi State and Florida every week coming up. We're most likely in the playoffs. 3 points is going to matter.
Yeah, 100%. And I think moving forward, it shouldn't be an issue as long as we're in his range. I mean, I'm not saying he's not going to miss a kick for the rest of the year, but I don't think we'll see the 1 of 6 stretch that we saw in the previous 2 games. So I'll ask you now. Besides Max Gilbert, and I'll go ahead and cross off Dylan Sampson too, because we'll have our own D Samp segment. Besides those two, who was your player that stood out to you?
Honestly, I thought Arian Carter had a great game, and honestly, Pierce. I don't know if you even count Pierce though, because we just probably going to be a top 10 pick, so you'd expect him to play like that.
Mm-hmm.
Jeremiah Thielander too. I thought Carter and Thielander caught my eye quite a bit on defense, and Thielander got the fumble recovery too.
Yeah. Speaking of that fumble recovery, I heard a lot of people who weren't at the game, who were watching on TV, like apparently Mississippi State came out of the pile with the ball, but they'd already pointed our way. Is that true?
Wait, say that again.
I was listening to Fox Sports Knoxville after the game, the voluntary reaction,
Mm-hmm.
and the Russell Smith said that Mississippi State came out of the pile with the ball, but they'd already pointed Tennessee's way. So the assumption was the referee who pointed our way saw Thielander on the ground with the ball and went ahead and called it. Which is,
So
go ahead.
they did do that, like on the TV. The TV broadcast mentioned that, but they said that there's no way that you can overturn that. Like it's like kind of like a judgment thing. Like the first player that he sees with the ball is what they're going to call. So yeah, on the Mississippi State player did come out with the ball, but even on the broadcast they were like it's kind of a nothing burger. Like they obviously saw somebody on Tennessee, Thielander. They saw Thielander with the ball on the ground at some point and just made the call.
Yeah.
And it's a judge. It's kind of like the forward progress. Like you can't really overturn it because it's. I mean, how do you prove that?
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, to your point, I thought both those players played very well. I heard Arian Carter's name called a lot by PA announcer. Like when we were stopping the run, most of the time he was the one doing it, and I totally agree. I thought he played great. Another ground defense that I think he's becoming a bona fide fan favorite if he wasn't already. Boo Carter had hands down his best game so far. I mean,
Oh yeah.
not just on defense too. I mean, he obviously had that big interception and multiple big hits, but some dynamic punt returns too.
Yeah, I mean he averaged just under 10 yards per punt return, which is pretty impressive considering nowadays everybody fair catches everything. Somebody made a comment on Twitter. I'm sorry, I don't remember who it was, but somebody said that one of the old heads on Vol Twitter said that Boo Carter is the closest thing he's ever seen to Eric Berry.
It's high praise.
I think that's pretty apt. I mean, Eric Berry's obviously a legend, but if Boo Carter has half the career Eric Berry did, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. I do want to see some people when our offense was stagnating, like in the third quarter. I saw some people saying to put Boo on offense. I mean, why not?
I don't know, man. I mean, that's what Deion Sanders was pitching to him to come to Colorado to do. But I mean, and he did it in high school too. But I think he's contributing too much on the defensive side at this point for them to make that change during a season. And but then again, when you're giving Sampson 30 carries a game and you have pretty unproven players behind him, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out completely.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to probably make a change like that when he's so impactful on the two sides of the field he already plays on, and like you said, this late in the season. But I don't know, it'd be cool to have a package like that.
Yeah, I mean, I could see him running, some special package, like you said, but I mean, he's just so good already through 9 games, and this is a staff that we all know is very, very hesitant to play underclassmen, and he has bucked that trend. Like, they realize that he's good enough to be on the field, and he's proving without a shadow of a doubt that he is.
Yeah, for sure. What did you think about Gaston? I mean, it's kind of hard to get a read because they didn't ask him to do anything. But
I mean, like you said, they put the ball in the air 8 times, 5 of 8 for 38 yards. The main thing I'll say about Gaston is he's not afraid to sling that pill, and it led to some pass interference calls. I think we got 3 in the second half while he was in the game. Um, I did notice one play where he had Kitzelman. As soon as Kitzelman was lined up right next to one of the tackles, and as soon as the ball was snapped, he was open. He ran straight, and he probably would have gained 50 yards if he threw it to him immediately. But he went with one of the streaks down the sideline. That was the only misread that I saw from him. And as far as the operation of the offense, I mean, I think we held the ball for like 20 minutes in the second half, which is what obviously the game plan turns into with the backup quarterback. So I have nothing bad to say about Gaston Moore's performance
it's
Saturday
just
night.
weird. It's weird to see, like, if you went back and watched even the 2021 offense and especially the 2022 offense, and then you saw how we've done like this season, you'd be like, what the hell happened? Like, this, not necessarily in a completely negative way, but a veer and shoot kind of offense that can put up 50 every week. Hendon Hooker's throwing for 300 yards a game, and then you look a couple years later and we're winning games like it's the 1990s, like controlling time of possession, ground and pound. It's interesting. I mean, if anything, it makes me like Heupel even more though, because it shows that it's not a Mickey Mouse offense, as people like to say.
Yeah, I mean, he's playing to the strength of the team right now. And I still don't think he wants to do that, but I think he realizes he has a good defense. And the best way to approach games when you don't get off to the hot starts, like we haven't in the last 4 games, is to do what we've been doing. And I think last night was the best version of that, um, especially when Nico goes out of the game. I mean, if Nico doesn't go out of that game, we probably score 45 points. Like, I think that's safe to say. And it's just he's doing what he has to do to win. Is
Yeah,
is the
for sure.
bottom is the bottom line, and we always talk about how we don't like the stubborn coaches who stick with what they're going to do, come hell or high water, to the detriment of the team's win loss record. Like that would be nonsense. And like I wouldn't care if Tennessee was running a triple option if they were winning the games that they've been winning this year so far.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, it's all that matters is you're winning games. I do think, not trying to give too much away from the preview episode, but I do think that if Gaston had to play a complete game, I do think it would look a little bit different. And I'm not completely sure it would be all that bad. And I say that because, don't get me wrong, Nico obviously is incredibly way more talented than Gaston. Like, they're not even in the same stratosphere. But Gaston, like you said, is not afraid to just sling that thing. And I
Yeah,
think against Mississippi State, when Gaston came in, Heupel, I'm almost guaranteeing you, Heupel just told him, "We just need you to not fuck up.
yeah,
Like, just don't turn the ball over, don't do anything too stupid, and we're going to win this game." But if he had to start against Georgia, or if he had to start a playoff game, God forbid, that wouldn't be the case. Josh Heupel would be opening up that playbook and being like, "Fuck it, you got to do what you got to do," So I don't necessarily think it would be. It would be interesting. I would definitely like to see it. I guarantee you, he would throw at least 2 interceptions if he had to play a full game. But I bet it would be entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's not scared. And if he does ended up, having to play on Saturday against Georgia, I think the playbook would be easy completions. I think you would see a lot of the wide receiver screen type deals, the 5 yard curls, the swing passes, the stuff like that, and we would obviously try to rely on the run game. But Heupel, let him throw deep balls. So I don't think it would be the most vanilla thing that we've seen yet. And I wouldn't have like I said earlier, I wouldn't be thrilled if Gaston had to play. I think our chances of winning would go down at least by half, but anything can happen. And
I mean,
he's
I don't think. I think. Well, should I say this or not? Fuck it. I don't think he would be much worse than Joe Milton,
I don't think so either.
if
Like,
any.
I mean, he's a guy who knows the offense. He's been with Heupel for 5 years now. Like, and obviously when you're playing the opponent that you were on Saturday night, like you said, he's not gonna, just cut him loose and go
Yeah, I mean,
balls to the
he's also
wall.
got like I'm just kind of coping, I guess, but preparing for the worst case scenario. But Mackenzie Milton is also here too, so you got to think if they know Gasson has to play, that familiarity with Milton and Heupel would. I don't think it would be like completely doom and gloom, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway, did you have any other takeaways from the Mississippi State game?
I just want to shout out Dylan Sampson once again. He hit another milestone last night as he became the 10th player in SEC history with 20 touchdowns in a season. Most recent was Najee Harris in 2020. Like he's getting into rarefied air now. Like and he still has 4 games minimum to play. Like
Yep.
he's putting together one of the best running back seasons a Tennessee running back has ever had.
I think it's incredible. He's if he wasn't already, he's firmly cemented himself as in the running for the best running back in Tennessee history when it's all said and done. And I mean, he's like you said, he's got a lot more to go too. It's not like this is the end, but it's impressive. It's amazing. But I do want to say, like, Ashton Jeanty is having one of the best running back seasons I've ever seen. And in this day and age where there's so much emphasis on throwing the ball and, high-powered passing attacks, what Jeanty's doing is incredible. So I don't want Vol fans to be like I've seen a lot of people being like, well, how is Jeanty in the like Sampson should be in the conversation if Jeanty is. Jeanty's a special player, dude. Like, and they're never going to put 2 running backs in the Heisman finalists ever again. Like, it's just not how football works anymore. But in another year, like if Jeanty wasn't in college football, I think it would probably be, as of right now, it's kind of a crapshoot because of what happened this weekend. But as of right now, I think without Jeanty, it would be Dylan Sampson, Dylan Gabriel, Cam Warden-Shedeur. But, obviously Jeanty's going to be up there because he's having an incredible year. It's just shitty timing for Sampson.
Well, all I have to say is, would he be doing that in the SEC?
I think he would.
I agree with you. I think he's a generational player.
I mean, he ran through Oregon like a knife through butter.
Yeah, and Boise State honestly should have won that game. But yeah, that's the last thing I wanted to say about the Mississippi State game before we look at some bigger picture stuff. Do you have anything else?
I mean, just staying on Sampson, I even tweeted it like, you don't even like criticizing it. It feels dirty because we have at least 2 more losses without Sampson this year. But the fumbling thing is an issue. I mean, it's concerning. It's every time he does it, it's a drive killer. It's obviously it's a drive killer, but it's a momentum killer, and it happens at horrible times. Hopefully I don't know if that's something that's fixable at this point, but it sucks. I mean, but then again, he always makes up for it. It would be one thing if he was finishing with like 54 yards and he fumbling, but he's getting 150. So it feels kind of silly to complain about it.
Yeah, it's just annoying because he literally had never fumbled the ball in 2 years, and I guess it was through 6 games until the Alabama game. Like
He's also
it's
never had a workload like this either, though.
yeah. That's the last thing I wanted to touch on with Samson. Like I think the workload is becoming an issue now, it's because he went out of the game with an injury, um, and I think it's not sustainable for him to run 25 plus times a game. I mean, he set a career high in carries on Saturday night too. So I think that's something the coaches are going to have to consider, like trying to cut down on his workload. Like because normally Tennessee puts in a running back and he stays in the whole drive, but with the way it's going for Samson and to keep him healthy for what is hopefully a playoff run, I think you have to consider spelling him during a drive.
Yeah, give my boy Khalifa 10 carries a game.
Yeah, I mean, and they did spread the workload around on Saturday night because they had to because he went out with injury, but
And he still had 30 carries.
yeah, I mean that goes to tell you how we played the game after Nico went out, but we ran the ball 57 times because Peyton Lewis had 14 carries, Cam Seldon had 6 carries, and Nico and Gaston scrambled a few times. Like I think they're trying to cut down on his workload, but it's a give and take because he's our most dynamic player.
Yeah,
I mean, like but I think it's a sliding scale that they're going to have to figure out
no, for sure.
the best
So
thing to do on.
for sure, and I heard before we started recording, you had some interesting takes on the latest AP poll that came out today. So why don't you elaborate on that?
All right, so luckily this shit doesn't matter, really at all anymore with the playoff committee doing the real rankings come Tuesday nights. But in what world is like Indiana was ranked behind us last week, and now they move up 3 spots after beating Michigan by 5 when we just won by 19 at home, and we move up 1 spot. Like I just don't get that. Like if like there's no logic to these writers doing this, and I hope some more sound logic is shown by the committee come Tuesday night.
Yeah, I mean, I figured that's probably where you were going with that. So if you want to look just with us, just compare it. I'm curious to know what your answer to this would be. What's Indiana's best win?
Probably the one they just got.
Well, do you think Michigan's good?
No, they don't
Yeah,
have. They really don't have a good win.
There you go. I mean, honestly, I was gonna say they completely dismantled Michigan State and Nebraska, which are both like average bowl teams, and they blew them the fuck out. So I guess you could say either of those. I mean, Washington by 15 is pretty impressive, I guess. Like they beat up on a bunch of mid teams is the point.
Yeah,
I mean, it's incredible. Like I'm not trying to hate on them. Like it's incredible. It's the first time they've ever been 10-0 in a season. It's only the 5th time they've ever been ranked in the top 5. So like good for them. Like it's a great story. They've been terrible for our whole life. But I think we're getting a little too cute with it. I mean, the games do matter. Like the record has to matter, but the strength of schedule has to matter too. I mean, okay, we lost to Arkansas. That's our only blemish. Arkansas would beat Indiana by 14.
yeah. I mean, does beating Alabama like not matter? Like,
Well, that's the thing is if you say that it's not that impressive because Alabama's down this year, okay, like I can maybe listen to that, but it's not like they think Alabama's down this year. They have Alabama at 9.
yeah.
So it's a catch-22 because they're saying that our win over Alabama is not that impressive. Yet Alabama, they're still impressed by. They're still a top 10 team with 2 losses. It has to be one or the other. Either Alabama is not that impressive or our win is impressive.
Uh, like I said, I'm very glad this doesn't matter anymore. But it's just annoying, and like I said again, hopefully the committee put Indiana behind us in the first rankings, and if they do the same thing the AP has done, I will lose all faith in their process for this year.
And you know what? Honestly, if you want to play the devil's advocate and say that that Indiana does deserve to be where they're at, like they deserve to be ahead of us, I would be fine if you swapped Indiana with Penn State. If you put Tennessee at 5, Indiana at 4, and Penn State at 6.
Yeah.
Like if you're that impressed, if being undefeated is that impressive to them, then they need to put Indiana ahead of Penn State too. Because what has Penn State done?
They need to put them behind Oregon if they're that impressed with them.
I'm just saying, like, I think Tennessee, you could make a case that Tennessee should be ahead of Penn State. They played one real game and they got beat bad.
Yeah. I mean, that's another problem with this AP poll. 4 of the top 5 teams are Big Ten teams, and it's the 4 that are worth a damn. So, what like they're beating up on the rest of their handicap conference this year, and you know, in 2 weeks we'll find out if Indiana is truly a player this year when they play Ohio State. But then they play Purdue, so they're going to be 11-1 at worst.
Well, but
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, here's the thing though. Even if they do, like, we're all assuming they're going to lose to Ohio State and beat Purdue, so they're going to finish 11-1. If they go to the Big Ten championship and lose to Oregon, do they get in with 2 losses? I'd say probably. If they're at 5 right now, they definitely do. Because if they lose to Ohio State, unless it's a bloodbath, like if they get beat by like 40, then they'll move down a lot. But if they keep it somewhat competitive against Ohio State, they're probably going to still be around number 10 next week.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird. I mean, we'll have more to discuss on Tuesday. I'm really curious to see if Indiana is going to be moved ahead of us on Tuesday because they weren't last week.
Yeah. Another thing about the teams ahead of us, what is the best win that Texas has had this year?
Yeah, that's the thing too. I mean, Danny Cannell said this the other day. He ended his point in retarded fashion, but the first part of it was factual. He said that he was making the case that A&M is the best team in the SEC and Texas is a fraud because their best win is against Michigan, who we now know blows. But I mean, the first part of that is true. Like their best win is probably at Michigan.
I would say at Vanderbilt.
I mean, yeah, who would have thought you would ever say that? But yeah, at this point, it very well could be.
I mean, to this point, Tennessee and Alabama probably have the 2 best wins in the SEC this year, with Alabama beating Georgia and Tennessee beating Alabama. Now that we kind of know LSU ain't all they were hyped up to be, so you can kind of disregard that A&M victory over them. Like, I don't know. The good news is there's 3 weeks left. A lot of this will shake itself out. We'll get a clearer picture, but it's going to be a tight race all the way to the end, especially if we end up losing to Georgia.
So here's my thing before we move on about the playoff rankings. So if you look at last week, right, you had Oregon, Ohio State, and Georgia as the top 3.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Georgia's going to move down. And then Miami at 4, obviously they're going to be moved down. So Oregon, Ohio State, they'll stay where they are. Texas, Penn State, Tennessee is what it should be, according to how they did it last week. But like you said, it'll be interesting. because Georgia Miami will probably go down to like 11 and 12. So if you keep everything else the same, I don't know if they'll jump to Indiana. If Indiana will jump Tennessee or not.
I don't know, man. I just hope something happens that reveals Indiana as a fraud. Which the only thing that could do it in the regular season would be Ohio State just reaming them. Like, but anyway, I think we've fleshed out that issue enough. And like you said, we'll have another crop of issues to talk about probably come Tuesday night. So, um, you have anything else before we hop into some basketball talk?
No, let's go for it.
All right. Tennessee basketball went up to Louisville yesterday afternoon and went wire to wire against a Louisville team that has been admittedly terrible for the last few years, but their program has been turned over completely. They don't have a single player left, and Louisville was favored in this game.
Yeah, like
But
10.5.
and Tennessee beat them by 22 points. So, I mean, anytime you go on the road in college basketball, and especially to a borderline blue blood program in Louisville on the road in a raucous environment that I'm pretty sure it was a whiteout or something. Who knows? But you beat them like a drum for 40 minutes badly. Like it was not close. I don't know if you watched the game, but it honestly should have been worse because Zakai Ziegler had 11 turnovers.
Yeah. Yeah, the Ziegler and Meshack both had 3 steals. Ziegler had a block, 11. That's insane. I mean, I would absolutely hate to be a guard on a team that's playing Tennessee. That has to be hell.
Yeah, for sure.
I
mean, it's
clamps put on you all game.
I mean, when Louisville was in the half court, their best play was jack up a 3-pointer at the end of the shot clock. A contested 3-pointer most of the time. Like you said, to be a guard playing Tennessee, you're in for however many minutes you play of hell. And by the way, that Ziegler block came on a jump shot on a 3-pointer, and I almost pissed my pants laughing. Like for all the turnovers that Ziegler had, at one point Louisville cut it down to 9 points in the second half, and then Ziegler controlled the game from that point on. Like when big plays need to be made in a game, Ziegler, I think, will be the one making them this year.
What's funny is I don't know if you noticed it while watching, but Louisville's starters sucked ass. Like they didn't have a single starter in double figures, and 2 of their starters didn't score a bucket.
Yeah,
like that's probably not good. And they had their leading scorer was a guy off the bench that threw up 18 points because he just chucked threes all game.
Yeah, it was a guy who shot like 4 of 12 from 3. So
they were just chucking up shots at their game. Whatever game plan they had, they realized wasn't getting it done. So they reverted to just chucking up shots and hoping a couple of them hit.
Yeah.
So,
but the main point is, I mean, it's impressive, no matter what time of year it is, what opponent you're playing, to win by 20 plus points on the road, and I think it's a great sign for Tennessee basketball moving forward. But they have to play their next game against. I'm pretty sure they don't have a game before then. They have to play Austin Peay.
Nope, Montana's next.
Okay, that's Wednesday night.
Yeah, that's the 13th. Yeah.
Okay, so before they play Austin Peay, they have to play Montana, which Montana's not a bad program either. But Austin Peay went on the road and beat Butler, so I'll let you speak on that for a second, Bryce.
Yeah, if you think, people laughed at me. People think I'm a homer, but you know what? Austin Peay's not a guaranteed win. and I'm standing by that. Do I think Tennessee will win? Absolutely. Could they lose? Absolutely. Um, Austin P went and beat Butler, which Butler is, having kind of a down year. I'm not going to pretend Butler, they're not, the Gordon Hayward Butler or anything, but Austin P systematically shut Butler down, held him to 66 points. And the thing about Austin P that is going to be interesting to watch, and Ryan, you might even know this guy. Um, Austin P's best player is a guy named L.J. Thomas, who was on the NC State team that went all the way to the Final Four last year.
He's a beast.
He was amazing for NC State, and he's amazing for us. So I can say us because I graduated there. But I'm rooting for the Vols, obviously. But yeah, Austin P, that'll be a good. Tennessee should win it, and they probably will. I'm just saying that's Austin P already has a power conference team knocked off, so can't sleep through that one. And like you said, Montana's not a bad team either. So this isn't like as much of a cupcake schedule as it could have been.
Yeah.
Virginia is a real team too.
Yeah, and that'll start the Thanksgiving tournament for us.
Yep.
Down in the Bahamas, I'm pretty sure. But LJ Thomas shot nearly half of Austin P's shots. So that's obviously the guy that Meshack or Ziegler, whoever should be checking on.
Yeah, I mean Butler doesn't have a Meshack or a Ziegler, so I'm not expecting it to be that drastic, But just saying, they got a real player on their team who's logged real minutes and scored points in the tournament.
Yeah, and he 13 to 27, 29 points. I mean, he carried the load for Austin P. But yeah, I mean, Tennessee basketball, good start to the year. Let's hope they keep it going. And like you said, two, sneaky little games that you cannot by any means sleep through for the Vols before they play Virginia in the Bahamas. So, you have anything else tonight, Bryce, you want to touch on?
Yeah, so I just wanted to say real quick, I know it's early, but we kind of talked about before the Louisville game happened, we kind of mentioned that, maybe the ceiling isn't as high as it has been in the last couple of years. I saw some people saying that some people literally predicted this could be Rick Barnes' worst team, which I think that's ludicrous, but I think, I even admitted I don't think this team is a Final Four team or anything. And you said that you could see a Final Four, but you're not necessarily expecting it. I don't know. After what you've seen against a quality, beating a quality power conference opponent by 20 points on the road, I mean, have your expectations changed at all?
Well, I didn't expect Tennessee to lose on Saturday. I mean, I was pretty confident that they could handle that. I was not expecting them to win by 22 points, though. So I think this team has a lot of potential. The main concern for me is still the post play, which a lot of that got answered too because Okpara and Milicic went out with 2 fouls in the first half, and Phillips and Estrella were in the game as Tennessee extended their lead to 14 at halftime. Like I think they're going to be okay, but and my other concern was Ziegler when he's not on the floor. How is this team going to run the offense? And a lot of that looked fine as well. I mean, Gainey, Lanier, and even Meshack can run the offense pretty well against I don't know if I would call Louisville a quality opponent. I would say an opponent with a pulse. And I would say my expectations are still the same though, because I said, get to the second weekend and we'll see what happens. And I think this team can do that for sure.
Last thing, did you think it was weird? I know it was only 1 minute, but Bishop Boswell getting in the game, did you expect that?
I mean, we were up by 20. I wasn't surprised at all. Yeah, I wasn't too surprised. The bigger issue personnel wise is when will Darlington Dubar be back in the fold? Obviously, whatever he's going through is more important, but add him into the fold and you open up a whole new dynamic to what
Yeah,
this team.
I'm not even gonna lie. Before, when I was talking about the depth, I kind of forgot about Dubar because I know he's away from the team right now. But if you're beating a brand name team like Louisville by 20, and then you're gonna add a guy who averaged 20 points a game last week into the rotation last year, uh, that's pretty encouraging.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to follow this version of Tennessee basketball. But I totally disagree with people who saying this is going to be Barnes' worst team. It's not never going to be worse than the 2019-2020 team when Vescovi and Josiah were freshmen and Fulkerson was our number one option on offense. So I think they finished 17-13 before the SEC tournament got canceled for COVID. But yeah, that's about all I have to say. Unless you have anything else for tonight, Bryce.
Just go Vols.
Go Vols, baby.